Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. The last episode for this year's horror week at Capes and Tights is brought to you by Galactic Comics and Collectibles at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. This episode is Clay McLeod Chapman chatting Seance in the Asylum, a Dark Horse comic coming out on October 9th. But also we chatted Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which is Clay's book that comes out January 7th, 2025. As well as a bunch of other things. We had some fun on this episode. But yeah, Clay McLeod Chapman is a writer of A Seance in the Asylum at Dark Horse Comics, author of novels like What Kind of Mother, Ghost Eaters, Whisper Down the Lane, and The Remaking. Recently released novellas Stay on the Line and Kill Your Darling, as well as a upcoming novel called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. He's also written a number of comics for Marvel and other things out there as well. This is Clay McLeod Chapman talking Seance in the Asylum from Dark Horse Comics and much more. Enjoy, everyone. You thirsty?
Oh, man. So I don't know if I'm thirsty, but I am sticky. I am sticky? I got like stickiness happening all over here. I feel like
I feel like we have to like
come in.
Yeah, you have a hard out, but like I feel like you have a hard out. Now you have to do it like 10 minutes early so you can take a shower again for spilling your coffee all over the place.
It's so gross. Oh, help me.
Oh man. It's crazy. Well, the funny thing is a lot of times I record a lot of these discussions in the morning or like early or like late morning. On Mondays, because I work from home on Mondays and I usually shift when I work my other job around this, like, do an hour of podcast instead of having a lunch break. I'll just eat during my lunch or whatever. And the number of people were like, that's fantastic. I don't want to do it at 7 or 8 o'clock at night like all these other podcasts do. But I'm like, but then you risk spilling your coffee.
Yeah.
If you do it in the morning. You didn't drink all that coffee. It's all
Oh my God. Well, here's the thing. I've been up since 4:35 because I get all of my work done before anybody else wakes up. So it is, yeah.
I slept in until 5:15. I got a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old, so they're 3.5-year-old. So there's that.
God, you're not getting any sleep.
No, and my 6-month-old has a cold, so like she'll like sleep for like an hour and then she'll cough and have like the most like snot filled. Like, I don't even know, like, how are you breathing? Like, how is this even possible? Like, you just like, and then she sits up, she's fine, but I'm like, I'm not sitting up all night with you. Like, it's not gonna, I'm sorry. I'm 38. I don't need to have up all nights with these kids, but no. And then today was my morning to sleep in. And then 5:15 came around. I'm like, cool, we're getting up. This is awesome.
Take those minutes wherever you can get them.
On the way to school, my son's like, I gotta poop. And I was like, can you wait? Is this coming now? Like, do we have to just pull over? And so he made it to school. But yeah, it was a whole morning for me too. So I could have.
That's the killer. There's always that moment of like, you can plan so far ahead and be like, do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to go to the bathroom before we go on this road trip? Do you need to use the restroom before we leave? And they're like, no. And then like,
you're pulling out of the driveway.
I need to go to the bathroom.
It's okay. We recorded last week with Nat Cassidy, and just before we were about to record, my son sharted himself. And so I'm like, Nat, we're starting off strong here, man. This is gonna be fun. I'll be right back. My hands might smell like shit right now, but I'm here.
I so want to believe that it was Nat Cassidy who conduced the sharding. Yeah. That like when in proximity to Nat Cassidy, people just automatically shart. Like it's like this magic. Like it's his like mutant power.
Yeah, it's probably. I could see that.
Nat Cassidy's X-Men name is Sharter, and he's like, if you're in like 3 feet of him, you're just like, oh,
nice to meet you, Nat. Oh man, what is going on? Right? I just
don't shake Nat's hand,
and it's not, you don't actually like full on, crap yourself. It's just a little. You just toot and a little bit. It comes out. It's all it is. It's nothing crazy.
A little toot and poop.
Yes. This is started off as started off. We usually devolve into these kind of conversations, but it just started off the top here. But
no, well, I'm literally covered in ice coffee. My computer is covered. I'm just such a derper this morning. I spilled like the second, I don't know what the heck I was thinking. Like I just did the fumble and I spilled coffee all over everything.
I saw
So
you actually just do this. You were trying to get out of it. I wasn't going to let you get out.
oh, no. So this may be the last podcast I ever do because I might not have a computer
I
5
don't want to be
minutes from
known for
now.
that. So Ozzy Osbourne, like I live in Bangor, Maine, and Ozzy Osbourne was supposed to come here like a number of times, and like health, obviously, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, can we please stop scheduling them to come? I don't want to be the town that's known for like, you know, that town that Ozzy Osbourne died on stage. Like, I don't
Oh
want that
God,
to be where like I live. I don't want that to be any like connection to that at all. It would be
that's on
horrible.
you.
Be like that. So like, please don't have your computer crash and then be like, oh, I was on that podcast that once and mother like
Oh,
he I
it's
had a
all their
book.
fault.
I had a book due next week, and it's gone now. Can't write this book
Oh my
anymore.
God. Yeah,
No,
I
that
need
would
to back
suck.
up my computer. Now I'm
But
really panicking.
so we're here to talk horror. So this is horror week for us. We're in horror week at the podcast. So we had
Hey,
so today, as we're recording this, today's episode that dropped was with CJ Lead. CJ came back
nice.
on. CJ came talk
Ah,
Mayfly last year. Now we're talking American Rapture.
which is an
And
amazing
then
book.
yes,
Amazing book.
and then my buddy Paul, who owns my local comic book shop, and I talked Swamp Thing, the movie from
Ooh,
1982. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Wes Craven.
Yes, Wes Craven. Great conversation there. We had a couple comic book writers and artists, Tate Bromble and Isaac Goodhart, who wrote The
Oh,
Oddly
wow.
Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. They did a Halloween
Wow.
special. And then the previously mentioned Nat Cassidy, Shart Cassidy.
AKA Charter.
And then now you're here. So we're here to talk horror. You're many faceted. You have books, comics, things like that. I originally wanted to talk to you like the summer with about Seance in the Asylum, but
Yeah.
some delays in that, and so we pushed that out. And I was like, oh, I'll talk to you sometime, hopefully in December, to talk about your next book.
Yeah.
And then Seance in the Asylum, all of a sudden, nowhere was like, oh, it's coming out. I'm like, holy crap, I didn't.
Yeah. Ah, it's coming out. Like that's basically the feeling. It's like, ah, this book, it's coming out.
It's coming out now. So then I talked to Caitlin over at Dark Horse. I was like, oh, let's get Clay on here and let's talk Silence of the Silent, but also we'll touch on Wake Up and Open Your Eyes because Jesus, talk about sharding yourself. Um, it also doesn't happen. I'm like in the middle of watching West Wing.
Yeah.
Okay, so like 2 months ago I got COVID and I needed to watch something that like I didn't need to pay attention to, so just in case I fell asleep, but I hadn't
Yeah.
seen because I wanted to keep my attention. Well, then I watched like the first two seasons in like 2.5 days. I just like
Wow.
binged it. And then I felt like I had to finish it. Now I'm like limping along trying to finish this. And so then I read things things like Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, and I'm just like, oh God, this world we live in is just shit.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You're reading it? You're reading the book?
I already read it.
You read it?
I read it.
Oh my God. How are you?
I'm not right.
I
the
mean,
problem is
it's
the problem is my so I have my family. I'm not gonna say family. My dad. My dad is a huge Fox News person. Okay, so like it does it hit too close to home in that sense.
yeah.
To the point where when I was younger, so I'm 38. When I was about 22, I was
Mhm.
living in Massachusetts. So we previously mentioned before we started recording, I was living in Massachusetts, and I started to get ingrained in my mind that what you're supposed to do when you get home from work is come home and turn on Fox News. Like
Mm.
that's where I thought like or Fax News, I should say. So I thought that was like what you did, and then I started just getting like so deep in it, and then finally
Yeah.
I woke up and woke my eyes. That wasn't planned, by the way. That wasn't like a segue into this. I
Yeah,
woke up
yeah.
and said, "Okay, I can have my own opinions here. Like I don't need to have the same as my dad is smart. He's very intelligent. There's just some things that like this is not what I want, and I decided to go. Oh, look at this. I'm gonna open my eyes and
Yeah.
figure out there's other things to watch and see out there. And my opinions changed a lot since
Yeah.
then. So no, it's phenomenal. It's all too close to home and real for me, but also in the world we live in. I'm glad it comes out in January for most people and not like right now, because
Uh,
I feel like people wouldn't want that right now.
I don't know when the hell they're gonna want that book. Yeah. I'm terrified of it. So
Well, why'd you write it then?
I mean it's something that scares me. It's kind of the thing that I find the most frightening at the moment. So
Yes,
I don't know, like
it's
I'm on this weird like habit of like, oh, what scares me right now? And it's like, oh, this is what scares me. And just writing about that and following my own neuroses, my own the
so
things. Yeah.
Your description is massive, by the way. It's like an entire book just to read what the book's about. But
Ugh.
the not that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I'm not going to read it all right now because I don't feel like reading it all. It's to take 10 minutes before you read it. But um, what would you describe Wake Up and Open Your Eyes just while we're on that topic to someone
Oh
when they
my
wanted to?
God.
Because it's available for pre-order right now, so you got to get people to
Yes.
buy this thing. And pre-orders are very important, people. And
Yeah, they
so,
are.
what is Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which comes out in January, January 7th?
I mean, my pitch is it's what if half of the country was possessed by demons? And which half is possessed by demons? I don't know. Whichever half, where do you get your news from?
Yeah.
And that it's kind of a I think that's the kind of simplest
Hmm.
explanation for it.
Hmm.
The the country is slowly schisming, and it's because half of us, whichever half, I don't know,
Hmm.
is becoming ooky and icky and scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was at BAM yesterday, and I actually got Obama's book for like
Hmm.
$7 in the clearance section, which I was like
Hmm.
really pumped about. And the lady at the counter tried to talk politics with me,
Yeah.
and I was like, first of all, I was getting like creeped out just because I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to, as an employee here, do that. So like, I feel like to me, as someone who's worked in retail before, I feel like someone shouldn't be like trashing one of the politicians' sign. I want to rip those signs down. I don't. You probably should. She was like whispering it to me, and plus I
Yeah.
was with my son, and I'm just like, I just want to get out of here. I just want to go home. I want to
Yeah.
leave. Please stop. Um, but yeah,
I mean, but
so
I think there's something to be said there where
yeah.
like the world is becoming increasingly more galvanized, like it's
Mhm.
becoming more politicized, and the act of going into a restaurant is a political like that is, like the I find regardless of what one personally chooses, we are making political acts or
Mhm.
political statements, whether we're even aware of the kind of political nature of them. And it's just because of these kind of heightened fraught times that we're
Mhm.
living in. Like, and I'm not making some grand sweeping statement for either left nor
Yes.
right. I think it's just like everything is just feeling yeah, just supercharged, super supercharged. And you can't walk out that front door without, something, happening for better or for worse.
Well, you're right because I mean, I'm not. I said one side or the other. I have down the street from me as a person who sells firewood, like up on the side of the road. Like $5 for a bundle of firewood or whatever. And I had a friend of mine who used to go by there and pick up all the time until they put a politician's sign
Oh yeah.
on their front steps, and then they're like, "Oh, not buying wood from them anymore." Like all of a sudden, out of
Wow.
nowhere, like nothing. They never spoke to the person. They never anything like that. It was just immediately like, "I'm never buying wood from there again," because that person supported another candidate that they didn't
Yeah.
agree with. And I'm just like, nothing changed though. Like you still supported this person. Like. So I'm like,
Yeah.
but there's that, and there's that point where, like you said, both sides of it doesn't matter what side you're on. I think now this book, "Wake Up and You Open Your Eyes," is a little again, I like reading things that make me escape a little bit, but there's also ones that be like, oh, like, this is a little close to home. And the horror that you would expect to be the horror sometimes is not exactly, what I mean? Like you watch Terrifier, the movie, you're like, I
Mhm.
know what the horror is gonna be. It's Art the
Yeah.
Clown, it's this, that, and the other thing. And then you read something like Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, and you're not like you don't know what the horror actually is. You're trying to figure out what the actual horror of the
Yeah.
book is. And I think that's
Everything
that.
is the horror.
Yes, yes.
All of it's the horror. Too
Spilling your
much
coffee is the
horror.
horror.
I yeah, I that book scares me so much. And like I do believe that like I just don't know, man. I This is the only time that I could write that book,
Yeah,
5 years from now. I mean, who the heck knows what
yeah,
5 years from now is going to be like, but I feel like this was the opportunity to kind of write about this specific moment in
yeah.
cultural history and, hope for the best,
Yes.
and uh, I just had to get it out of my system.
Well, you
So we'll
did, but
see.
I told CJ when we talked on the podcast, I was like, hey, your book comes out October 15th, so it's guaranteed to come out. if the world ends at the beginning of November after the election, no, actually, other than the advanced copies, no one will read "To Wake Up Open Your Eyes" because we won't be around anymore.
I love American Rapture. God, that book. That
Yeah,
might be one of my favorite books
it,
of the
it's
year.
phenomenal, and
Yeah,
yeah, and if for to be the follow up to Mayfly too is just
oh,
like yeah,
brutal,
absolutely.
brutal.
But I also read this year's Stay on the Line, which was phenomenal as
Oh,
well. And
oh,
I have not got a chance to read Kill Your Darlings, but I will be reading that.
eh,
That's another novella
there's
that's
time.
out. There's
There's
always time. But I did read Seance in the Asylum #1, which I'll
yeah.
tell you right now, Clay, you weren't originally when this was solicited to me, you weren't the draw. And I apologize for that, but the original artist was the draw, and so I'm a huge fan of Andrea Muti, who
Yeah,
actually did the covers anyway. So you have your cover
yeah.
of issue 1 is Andrea. But after reading books by you, then I was like, okay, yes, I really want to read Seance in the Asylum. I want some more of this, and so on and so forth. So Seance in the Asylum comes out this month for October 9th from Dark Horse Comics. But yeah, how did this come to be? Like, how did you, was this, why this story? Why in comics?
Well, I love comics. I've
Okay.
written for comics.
Mhm.
I feel as if this particular story needed to be a comic. I found this, the idea for this story was seeded into my subconscious when I was doing research for a book a couple years ago. And I was looking at different kind of forms of spiritualism and seances and kind of contacting ghosts, spirits from beyond the veil. And I found this there was a mention in another book, a nonfiction book,
Mhm.
uh about uh you know in 1850s 1857, there was a doctor who wrote an entire kind of pamphlet, a treatise on this idea of spiritualism and seances being a form of therapy, that you could use contacting ghosts and contacting the dead as a almost like a spiritual
Mhm.
cleanser. And I thought that was so fascinating that, like, at that point, these mental institutions, these asylums would be implementing spiritual seances
Mhm.
amongst their patients. And this wasn't like widespread, wasn't like an form of hair therapy, like hydrotherapy or, shock therapy, or, it was in of itself just a very fringy kind of notion. But for this one doctor, like, he really wanted to purport like this will be the revolution of modern medicine, because at that time spiritualism was pretty hot, this idea of like contacting the dead, finding family that had passed on and gone beyond the veil a little too early to say goodbye and say I love you. It that idea that it could become a form of
Mhm.
healing for those who are mentally infirmed, or suffering from whatever kind of form of madness they believed in, back in 1860,
Yeah.
1865. And I just thought, I read this mention. I hunted down the book, the pamphlet. I read the pamphlet, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever. I want to, this
Yeah.
needs to be something." So it became the kind of seed source material inspiration for Seance in the
Yeah.
Asylum.
Yes. And we talked a little bit off before we recorded too, but like I've talked to Daniel Kraus about this too, and other authors who are also comic book writers. What makes the decision between whether or not this becomes a novella or a novel or a comic book? I know you said you're a fan of comics, you've written for comics before, but like what said that Seance in the Asylum needs to be a comic book over something else? It just felt like that's what it needed to be, or
Well, it's the visual medium. I mean,
Mhm.
I think that when you're dealing with, I mean, like sure, I could have written a screenplay or like try to make a
Yeah.
movie out of it, but like there, the scope and scale and with comics, you have a gazillion dollar budget, and your mind's eye is the camera, and not only are you kind of like dealing with kind of the visual vocabulary, but like you get to like play with time in this way
Mhm.
that's just so different. And like uh the way that we see these things, but also the way that we experience them, the way that like we kind of absorb image and the pacing of that. Like I just that comics is great for those practitioners who really kind of know how to utilize the medium. And I I've been writing about seances for gazillions of years, and like I just come back to it time and time again because I'm obsessed. I love it. Um, but I knew that for this particular story, it was historical, it was a period piece. I didn't want to like write a novel about the Civil War era, but I think that the comic kind of provides a visual for us to kind of dive into that kind of period in time. Um, and it I don't know, it just kind of launches you in.
Mhm.
Uh, and I don't know, like I just feel like it's gorgeous. I mean, like Leonardo's work is
Yes.
just phenomenal. And like the book is just going to be, I'm just going to like, we're stockpiling seances in there. Like
Yes.
I think issue one has like what, two seances in it. And
Yeah.
like, it's like, just cram that shit in. Like,
Yes.
let's just get to the goods. Um, and that's like, I mean, I should know the answer to this, and I'm
Yeah.
probably sure that somebody has, but it's like that idea of like who's done a seance in a comic book? Is there someone? There's
I
bound to be someone, right?
yeah, possibly. I can't put my finger on it, but like there's got to
There
be at some
has
point.
to
But
be.
yes, but is there one that has like 17 in the first three issues? You're just going for the
None.
number. You're going for
Yeah.
The Guinness Book of World Records number for
You
number of
like
silence.
seances? You like comics? You like seances in your comics? Well, you gotta get seance in the silence right there in the title. We're just gonna chock full of seances. Well, it's only 4 issues, but that's you're getting
Yes.
bang for your buck, baby.
But I mean, you mentioned Leonardo artwork. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. And so, like I mentioned at the top of this conversation about a seance, is that it had Andrea Muti,
Mhm.
as the artist, and then so Andrea's covers. If you see the covers out there, you're a fan of Andrea. They're phenomenal covers. But I wasn't disappointed, if that makes any sense. Like when I finally opened the issue, I'm like, at first I'm like, okay, cool. We have to wait longer because now we're changing artists. That's fine. It happens in comics all the time. This is not a new thing. I'm waiting for it. And then I open the issue. I'm like, okay, I'm not sad. I'm not disappointed by this because it's phenomenally
I'm not
illustrated.
mad. I'm just disappointed.
My dad used to
I'm
say
not
that to
mad at
me.
you. I mean, it happens.
Well,
Just
it
you know.
happens. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. No, but I wasn't. And that's the thing. I could have been. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes you get that notion in your head, like you already discount someone's work when something changes from what you're expecting it to be. And so I was
Mhm.
expecting a great comic from you and Andrea. And then I got a comic from you and Leonardo. And I'm like,
Mhm.
ah. And then I opened it. I'm like, no, never mind. That's not even in my mind anymore because it's
Mhm.
phenomenally done. And I almost think I liked it better. Like I like Andrea's stuff, but like I feel like I now think this works better for Leonardo than it did for Andrea. So that
Mhm.
makes me happy.
Yay.
It's phenomenally done. It's got got colorist Mauro, Mauro, Mauro Galma.
Yeah.
And it's at Dark Horse, which is a knack for telling these kind of stories, which I'm excited for. And I really am a big fan of Dark Horse and all the stuff they're doing over there. Did Dark Horse just choose to take this one on, or is Dark Horse the place to be, or is there a reason why you were at Dark Horse?
I mean, Dark Horse has been great because you know the level of faith that they have in their creators
Mhm.
is pretty jaw-dropping, to be honest.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
you know, I feel like the editorial process, you're always, finding your guardrails. Like,
Mhm.
what's the, how closed in are we going to be? And Dark Horse has been really kind of open. It was like, what's the story that you want to tell?
Mhm.
And, and us being like, can we do this? And they're like, yeah, go for it. Do it. And, you know, I don't want to have like an either or, but like I do, like more often than not, if it's a yes or no question, the answer at Dark Horse is always yes.
Yes.
And I find that really refreshing because so a lot of, not all the times, but sometimes the answers at other places have been no. And or maybe, but no. And I don't know. Like it's like
I
Dark
mean,
Horse has just been like really bit like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go wild. Let's go crazy.
I've heard. I mean, you're not the only one to say that, which is nice to hear. Is that Dark Horse does that, and some of these independent publishers. Is there also a difference between like writing for the big two, like writing for Marvel, versus
Yeah.
writing for some sort of independent? This is your story. This is really like you have to be like, I want Spider-Man to do this or Carnage to do this, and they're like,
Yeah.
can't do that because the X, Y, and Z. Whereas you can have three asylums, two seances in the asylum in the same, and no one's gonna
If
question it
this
because there's no
if this
like
was a Marvel comic, whoa. One seance
one's
per
what's
issue,
questioning
pal.
it.
That's it's not called seances in the
That's
asylum. It's just singular now. Um
yes. Well, like you've written a lot of symbiote style things, so like they have to, there's certain things that they abide by and their rules, and there's a future. You mentioned this is 4 issues. Yes, could you do more in the future if you ever wanted to? This is your story, and Dark Horse says yes. I've talked to other creators who did a 4 or 5 issue miniseries at Dark Horse, and then 2 years later they're doing a sequel to
yeah.
that and so on. But like, there is a future. Lasher and all these other people have to carry on after
Yeah.
your Marvel comic. And so you can't do specific things because of parameters that they have set, whereas you really have whatever you want to do because this is your story.
Yeah. I feel like every time I've written for Marvel, it feels like such a kind of blessing because there's like this moment of like, I mean, you're playing in someone
Yeah.
else's
Mhm.
sandbox. You're playing with someone else's toys. Like it's, you can go to town and like have a blast, working with Carnage or Venom or, Lasher or Scream or, any of the characters. And it's great. And like the best stories tend to be ones that elevate the characters that
Mhm.
they've had in their stable, and push into new territory and do something different with them. But like at the end of the day, they own
Mhm.
it. It's theirs. But when you do a creator-owned piece, it's kind of like there is a certain kind of like, okay, now this is mine. So what do I do? Like, where do I want to go with this? And
Mhm.
like, um, I don't know. Like, it's been a while since I've done a creator-owned story, so I feel really lucky, really fortunate. Um, but there is that moment of like, oh yeah, my editor isn't going to tell me I can't do that because in issue 234,
Yes.
Spider-Man was wearing Reeboks and not,
Yes.
Keds.
Well, it's also funny because I think that there's things that you get told and you're like, you can't do this. Like Kevin Smith has talked about writing Marvel stuff, whether it be TV or comics, and him be like, I want to play with this character. Like, you can't touch that character. The character that's like not anywhere. And he's like,
Yeah.
why can't I? Like, he's reading too far into it. Like, what's coming up in the future that I don't know about that I can't use this random ass character in a comic book
Yeah.
or a TV show? And so you're like, kind of like, I would be like, I would want to see. I would want to be like, well, what are you gonna do with it? If I can't touch it, like what's going on? What's there?
Yeah.
And I can see like you have a freedom, but also having parameters might be a little bit easier to stick within those parameters and write within those
Totally.
parameters. Whereas, you in a 4 issue series of Seance and the Asylum, you could literally do whatever you wanted to as long as it made sense. And I guess the fourth issue doesn't
Two
have to make
seances,
sense. The fourth
three
issue doesn't have to make
seances,
sense because it's the last issue. So
four seances.
as long as you sold the first 3 issues well, the fourth issue you could do whatever you want with because there's no fifth
Yeah.
one. So
I mean, like it's because we're just trying to tell a ghost story. We're trying to tell
Mhm.
like a historical period, uh psychological, supernatural. I mean, like to me, this is just the catnip of everything. Like every trope, every cliche, everything that kind of makes gothic a sign. What is, I mean, like what would be a like sanitarium horror,
Yeah.
hospital horror,
Yeah.
like what, like the kind of Shutter Island of it all, like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
what is, going to the mental institution and like, oh, who, like, you know I just eat that stuff up. I just like, oh God, it's just, yeah,
It-
playing those notes, man.
yeah. I mean, it's a phenomenal first issue and sets up a lot. I do appreciate there's obviously a backstory to Alicia Wilkinson, her story as a person of these doing these seances and things like that, like the spiritual part of her. And you could have come out, and I don't want to spoil anything in the comic for people, but like you could have come out and just been like, this is the history of Alicia. And then we move into the rest of the thing. I do appreciate the flashback dream sequence, kind of like touching on those things. Like, let's go back and talk about her past, but we're obviously in the present, and we're working towards that. I honestly felt like that was something that an author would do too. So like, I feel like there's that reasoning. Like, it seems like when I'm reading a novel, that's what they do in a novel. And so I could see that overlay on that. But yeah, I appreciated that because it broke up some of the entire comic, the first issue, as well as gave us more information without having to be like, okay, here's her faults and let's go forward from there, and so on. And it was timely in that point where you read it. So it's well written, it's well illustrated, like I mentioned. Covers are phenomenal. All that stuff. It's 4 issues. That's a big thing to me nowadays, is that I think someone's attention span is not that long. Why I think novellas are killing it right now too. I honestly think that novella, the industry of novellas are really high up there. It's because attention spans aren't that strong anymore. And I think that reading 4 issues and being committed to 4 issues, a lot of times if I buy a first issue of a 4-issue miniseries, whether I like it or not, I'm buying all 4 because I need to collect all 4. I need to have all of them. And so having it be only 4 issues is a nice little tight story. As long as you know it's 4 issues to start off with. Like if you as a creator, like, you get 10 and then they shorten it to 4 issues. Sometimes those could be a little tough.
4 was tight. I would have been happy with 5.
Yeah.
But 4 kept us honest, kept us like clipping along. But like, this to me is just such a self-contained story. Like I seriously doubt there'll be a sequel to this one. I mean, I'll eat those words happily. But it's like this is what it wants to be. It just like get in, get out. Because what you're suggesting with I'm committing to 4 issues. You're also committing to 4 months. Like we're starting in October. We're not going to finish this thing until January. Like that's am I doing that right? October, November, December. Yeah, January. Like that's nuts. Like that's a lot of time to ask anyone, like, hey, come back. We're still here, still going. Like head back to your local comic book shop and pick up the thrilling conclusion. Happy New Year. We basically get to say Happy Halloween, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. So happy, joy.
Which is funny because that's not what your original plan was. It was going to be like 3 months ago, so we would have been finishing it right.
I know,
but
we would know what would happen. Yeah,
things happen, and so that's fine, which is it's great. It's coming out. I'm still happy that it's coming out, and people are actually going to read it because that's the big part. But yeah, I mean, so this working on a creator-owned thing, like you mentioned, it's been a little while since you've done a creator-owned comic. You've been dabbling over there at Marvel for a little while there, and so on. Does this reinvigorate wanting to do more comics that are creator-owned, or is it more like, okay, I'm going to write my novels. I'm done with writing some of my own comics again.
No, I mean, like, Jesus, I've been pitching creator-owned stuff like, how do I say that? I try to keep busy, and when a story comes my way or an opportunity, maybe it's even more an opportunity. Like every so often, like an editor at a place will reach out and be like, hey, you got anything? And I'll be like, yeah, how about this? And they'll be like, oh, nah. It's just go like everybody says no. Like I've been rejected like it's just such a bummer. I'm like, I'm not, I don't know if I should be saying this, but like it's just been so hard to like sell something. I've been trying. I wouldn't say like I've been trying desperately, but like I've been able to do the Marvel stuff, which is kind of like it happens and then it goes away, and then I'll be like, am I ever going to write for Marvel again? Like I don't know. Because I like the phone doesn't, like I can pick up the phone and be like, hey, Marvel, you like, but it's like when they call, they don't pick up the phone. And that's fine. That's
call them, they're like, who are you?
Yeah, what's going, and that is totally fine because that's just the nature of the business and the beast. If they want me, they will reach out.
Mhm.
I just have to remind them that I am alive and that I
You're available.
have
Yeah.
potential value
Yeah.
for them. And then,
It's
but then create our own stuff. Uh, there's definitely not a shortage of amazing writers and artists in comics. So, uh, I get it. My my ability to kind of pitch stuff is really like, I'll do something for Skybound, or I'll do
yeah.
something for Boom, or I'll do something for Vertigo, or for, whoever, you know, whoever's around, and they'll be like, "Oh, that was really fun. Do you have any ideas for something else?" And
Yeah.
I'll be like, "Yeah, how about this? Or how about this? Or how about this?" And they'll be like, 3 months later, they'll be like, "Nah, none of those floated our boat." And I'll be like, "Oh, okay, bye."
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. And like, you know,
It-
it is what it is. So yeah,
But I think it's the thing that behind the scenes people don't understand a little bit is the fact that there's so many comics out right now, but there's also that many comics out there times 10 the number of pitches and ideas that
yeah.
are floating out there
Oh
because
my
only a
God.
few of them stick and only a few of them actually get to created. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like those four stories you brought to someone, it's like it's just not the time for them. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's 6 months, a year from now, someone's like, actually, were you pitching me this idea? Can we do that now? Or another publisher picks it up or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I know there's that, like, there's people who worked on comics for 10 years, the same, not worked on it, but just had the idea that they've been pitching it and doing whatever with it. And it
Yeah.
finally got made. I
It's
know
a
that, like,
miracle.
yeah. Well,
It's a
it's like that in
miracle
books,
that
though. But like it's in
yeah.
everything in publishing, I believe it's like that though. Like it's not. I mean, I think CJ was saying that it took her 10 years to get American Rapture made.
Uh,
It's not like it happens overnight. And some people it does. Some people are lucky enough to
yeah.
get things overnight. And some people it gets to the point where their name is so synonymous with good comics that they just like will print your grocery list as a comic book. Will
Yeah.
illustrate your grocery list. There's an apple, here's an orange,
Yeah.
and all that. But yeah, but I do think one of the cool things about what Dark Horse is going to get out of this comic too is the fact that you have a loyal following in your novels. I believe you have a fandom that follows your writing, and I think that Seance and Asylum, above and beyond things like Lasher and all those Marvel comics that you've done over the past couple of years, is that it's easy for me in my mind to translate from your writing in novels to your writing in comics when it's a creator own thing. Not saying
Yeah.
that it's not like that for the symbiote universe, but like your Seance in the Asylum is a lot more like your books than your Marvel work is. And so I think a lot of people who are fans of yours out there should be able to stumble upon Seance in the Asylum and find something they like. Maybe they're not into comics, which is really cool because Dark Horse might get that person to bring over to the visual medium.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? I feel like, yeah, I just have to let the folks know, let the people know that
Yes.
this comic is out there.
Yes.
You like
Uh,
seances? You like asylums? I got a seance in an asylum for
Asylum.
you.
Yeah, it's funny. I have at the asylum, in the asylum. Yeah, so like it's available October 9th. It's a first issues out. Again, you mentioned it's every month. So October, November, December, January is 4 issues coming out from Dark Horse. Dark Horse does a great job collecting those into a trade paperback too. I recommend reading month to month. I remember at least
Hmm.
buying it month to month. And again, I'm a
Hmm.
big fan of Andrea Muti, so there's that cover part of it too. There's also variant
Totally.
cover as well. So check that out. So you have all those options for that if you're a big collector in that sense. If you trade weight, you trade weight. I can't stop you from doing that. Like buy the trade, whatever, it is what it is. But you also have Stay on the Line, the novella that just came out recently. You have Kill
Yeah.
Your Darling, which just came out recently.
Yeah.
You have Wake Up and Open Your Eyes that's available for pre-order coming out in January.
Yeah.
And you've got other stuff that you're working on and have released. You're just a busy person and you need to breathe here for a second.
I don't know. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And like I'm gonna be in my grave and I'm gonna be like, oh man, I should have fucking written that thing. I should have done
Yes.
that thing. And I'll just live the rest of my eternity regretting not having written that thing. So I'm just gonna write it until people say, nope,
Stop writing.
nope,
Clay,
you're
will you please
dead.
stop doing that?
Somebody needs to have a seance with me when I'm dead, and I'll write from the grave.
Yeah.
That's it. Seance in the with the clay.
But yeah, and so all that stuff's coming out, and I think I recommend all of it. I do, and I think that if you're a horror fan, there's a bunch of horror there for you. Again, if you're a Marvel fan, there's a bunch of Marvel stuff out there too that you can grab. And then if you haven't had an opportunity, which I haven't yet, but I've seen on the internet, if you get a chance to meet Clay, I've heard this is an experience. So I think that, this is coming out October 5th or whatever, 4th, whatever, I did this week. And October 19th, I'll see you in Massachusetts. But there's other things coming up. You did book signings. You're a fun person on the internet. I love your writing. So keep it up. Do not
Thank you.
change at all. We're big fans of you. And Seance in the Asylum comes out October 9th. And I'm going to pitch Wake Up and Open Your Eyes January 7th. Pre-order. Most places you honestly pre-order nowadays too. They don't actually charge you until you ship it. So like,
Oh, wow.
it doesn't make a difference. If you're going to buy it, just pre-order it. Because then it's why wait? Just pre-order it.
That's money in your pocket, staying in your pocket until
you're like, oh shit, I pre-ordered that. Where does this money come from?
What happened? Where did that book come from? Why did I buy that?
I appreciate you taking the time out to come on here and chat Seance in the Asylum, Wake Up, Open Your Eyes, all that stuff, and so much more. I will see you in a couple weeks. But I appreciate it.
Thank you. I just want to say, the Sharder is.
Nat's gonna. I feel like people just walk up to Nat and say, "Hey, you're a Sharder," and I'm like,
"Oh my
cool.
God, yes!" If anyone is listening to this right now, if you've stayed on to the bitter end of this podcast,
yes.
This is my favor. I am pleading with you. I am begging. Please, dear listener, go up to Nat Cassidy
and just be like,
hey, just call him the Sharder.
Can you sign that?
Hello,
the Sharder? Can you sign
Sharder.
my book? Can you sign my book? Can you please write that up to the Sharder? Which is actually kind of funny because if you think about it, we talked about his book called Rest Stop, which is about a bathroom at a rest stop. So like it would actually fit.
Oh my God.
It all goes together.
Just like on social media, just on Twitter, just like tag
Sharder.
Nat and just be like, "Hey, Sharder, what's up, Sharder?" Don't tell him why.
No,
don't, please. I just want 2 or 3 people to just be like, Sharder. "Word up, Sharder."
Sharder. And like my son's gonna be like, my son's gonna turn 30 and hear this story and be like, "Hey, by the way, you sharded before a podcast, and this is this has become a whole thing." Nat Cassidy is Sharder.
I am begging.
I found out you're next creator on comic. You co-write a book called The Sharder with Nat Cassidy, but I don't know if Dark Horse is gonna go on with that one. You might have to be an image book because you might have to self-fund that one. The Sharder seems like one that's questionable.
One man holds the power to rule the world.
All I can think of though is like
you fart and kind of shit at the same time.
I can just picture in my mind the shit monster from Dogma, Kevin Smith's Dogma.
Oh, God,
like when he comes out of the toilet, like I just picture that now. That's the Sharder right there. But I don't know.
Please, I'm begging you, any one of you, whoever you are, I will thank you to the high heavens. But like, just be like,
Sharder.
Word up, Sharder.
Oh God, this is great. This is great. Start off with coffee also makes you sharp, so it all goes together. Clay spilled his coffee all over his table when we started this podcast. We ended it with telling people to call Nat Cassidy a Sharder. It's great, but it's all, and there's a bunch of stuff happened in between. So if you, I appreciate everything, Clay. I will see you soon. Again, keep up the great work. We're big fans here, and I hope more stuff comes out from you in the future. I hope so. We'll see.
More show.